And Kerry Fink will introduce you, the host of the show and the executive director, kind of like live radio working without a safety net, right, Kerry?
It's all good, John. How you doing today?
Doing well, and good to have you here with us on this Wednesday afternoon and our weekly get-together with Helping Seniors of Brevard. And you've got a good guest coming up here in just a couple of moments as well.
Oh, absolutely. It's always a pleasure to gather on the radio every Wednesday around 12 noon right here on 90.3 FM, WEJF. And also want to welcome those who tune in online, because there's a lot of those folks who find us at WEJF.net. And also want to say hello to those who catch us as a podcast later, because every time we do our live Helping Seniors radio program on WEJF, we also make sure that we capture the essence of it and we put it out as a podcast each week, because the information we talk about is designed to help you with putting together your own aging plan. So on behalf of our president and founder, Joe Steckler, and also Nancy Deerdorf, our operations director, I want to welcome you in. And, you know, if you know Joe is the most tireless advocate on behalf of seniors. And for years, he's talked about something called making an aging plan. And what that is all about is, just like we make hurricane plans, because we live in Florida, does not mean we want to deal with a hurricane. In fact, it really means the opposite. It just means we want to be prepared for anything that we might run into. And so on this case, what we do with the Helping Seniors aging plan idea is really just to map out those kind of things that would help you as we go down the road. In fact, for this year, we called our topic for the year, kind of our theme, if you will, get your ducks in a row. And by that, what we mean is, let's make an aging plan. Let's make sure that we've tried to plan ahead for those things that common sense and a little bit of education would suggest make sense to plan ahead for. And I'm really excited about the show that we're going to have today, because our guest is going to be none other than board-certified elder law attorney Bill Johnson. But I want to do a little bit of a setup ahead of that, because what we've been trying to do each month in this year with this whole theme of get your ducks in a row, which is our kind of lighthearted euphemism for, as Joe Steckler would say, let's get an aging plan together. What we've tried to do is each month along the way, we've picked out a theme. So literally, as we began the year, we took a look at things that you should think about from a legal standpoint. And this is things that you want to talk about. It's estate planning. It's things like living will, all those kind of different things. And we actually focused on that one month, and then we took another month and we talked about financial tips and things like that. Then the next month we got into things about if you're going to live safely at home. And then we took another month where we actually were talking about, well, what if you decide you might want to choose a different way to live in your senior years? Maybe you want to look for a place that you could enjoy assisted living or something like that. And so each month of this year that we've been talking about this theme, we've been talking about getting your ducks in a row. And so this month, our theme is Let's Talk Medical. And so that's what we're going to do. In fact, if you picked up your copy of the Senior Scene magazine and you look for the Helping Seniors newsletter, where those yellow pages in the center section, you'll see lots of great articles, including an excellent article by our own operations director, Nancy Deerdorf. She's got 33 years of registered nurse experience, and she also ran one of the area's largest home health agencies. And what a blessing it is that she serves us in that capacity of operation director. She did a great article called "You're the Captain of Your Own Healthcare Team." And so, by the way, if you're not familiar with this, every bit of this is archived at helpingseniorsofbrevard.org. So you can go back and miss any of these, including great articles that our guest, Bill Johnson, board-certified elder law attorney, has for us. And so the question is, if we're talking about Let's Talk Medical, you would say, well, what does that have to do with elder law? And I'm glad you asked that. And hello, Bill Johnson. How are you today?
I'm doing fine, Kerry. Good afternoon.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you on the radio show as always. I always look forward to the first Wednesday of every month, because you always bring such an excellent insight.
Well, Advance Directives are governed by Chapter 765 of the Florida statutes. And basically, these are what your health care wishes are and who your decision makers will be with regard to making healthcare decisions if you're unable to make them yourself. In other words, if you're unable to give informed consent what are your wishes, and who will be making those decisions on your behalf.
Is this kind of in that wheelhouse, or how do we think about that?
Okay, so there are a couple documents that are part of what we call Advance Directives. That would be a designation of healthcare surrogate. That in that document, you designate somebody to make healthcare decisions on your behalf in the event you are incapacitated, or nowadays you can actually check a box and have it effective immediately if you wanted to do that. The other one is a living will, and a living will is your end-of-life instructions, whether or not you want life support continued. If you're incapacitated, meaning you can't tell your doctor, and you're in either a terminal condition, an end-stage condition, or a persistent vegetative state. And those are all defined in the statute. And then usually you also note whether or not you want the artificial administration of food and water, which is a feeding tube. Now, if you don't have any of those documents, there is what they call a healthcare proxy statute under 765.410 of the Florida statutes, and that determines who will make your medical decisions. So even if you don't have a healthcare surrogate, there is a way for somebody to make medical decisions on your behalf.
Yeah, we're talking with board-certified elder law attorney, longtime friend of the Helping Seniors Radio Network, Bill Johnson. And that's an interesting point, because one of the great quotes that I remember you saying, and it's always stuck with me, Bill, is you said, if you don't have a plan, the government has a plan for you in all these cases. And the key thing is it may not necessarily be the plan that you would want to have happen, right?
I have that going on a case right now. Well, briefly, if you don't have a healthcare surrogate, the statute, the healthcare proxy statute, says that there is a pecking order of people who will act on your behalf. The first would be a judicially appointed guardian. The second is the patient's spouse. The third is an adult child of the patient, and if there's more than one adult child, then a majority of the children. Then a parent of the patient, then an adult sibling. If there's more than one sibling, then a majority of the siblings. Then there's an adult relative of the patient who has exhibited special care and concern for the patient. Then we move on to a close friend of the patient. And then lastly, last in the pecking order is a clinical social worker.
Wow.
So those are the people who can make your decisions. In the case I have right now, we have a lady who is incapacitated, and she has 2 children, but they can't agree on anything.
Oh, no.
So obviously that has led to a lot of fighting and expense and guardianship hearings and things like that. So it's much better to have these laid out, and you pick who's going to do this for you than to have the court decide.
Wow. And Bill, I've been around you long enough to I think follow this nuance in it, but let's suppose the situation comes up that somebody doesn't have, something written down like what we're talking about. And let's suppose that they are not married, but they're cohabitating. They live together. And now the person who is in the hospital with all this serious stuff and decisions needing to be made and all those kind of things, that person that lives with them would not necessarily be first in line to make decisions. Am I saying that the right way?
It could possibly end up that way, yes.
Yeah, because if you had, when you were going through that sort of that pecking order, as it were, it would seem like, maybe the wife, so let's just suppose there was some really complicated, I think people put that out on Facebook when they try to describe their relationships, and one of the choices is complicated. And let's suppose this person is living with somebody, but maybe their divorce isn't fully finalized. Wouldn't that create some obvious challenges about who calls shots at a hospital?
would cause quite a bit of problems. So yes, and that might not be all the kids may not agree with that.
Right.
So that would make something ripe for litigation again.
Yeah. Yeah, and again,
the idea is to get these documents so we don't have to go litigate these things.
Right, because I have heard in the various radio shows and TV shows and columns that you've written along the way to help get information in the hands of seniors throughout Brevard County. One of the things that I've really picked up from you is that you really put yourself in harm's way expense-wise when all these things come up after the fact because you didn't nail stuff down. And so everything is ripe for arguments or confusion, and all of this takes place at an extremely high-stress time. And I think your point all along has been, why don't we just sit down, get this stuff organized? It's very inexpensive to do so relative to what the problems we could face on the other side of it are.
Yeah, and in fact, you can get forms for the healthcare surrogate and living will at the hospital. When you go in there, if you don't have these, they have you fill them out. However, usually they end up keeping them. They don't give them to you. But there's something called the 5 Wishes, which is out there, and you can just Google that, and they will mail you basically a healthcare surrogate and living will combination document. So there are ways to get these documents for free without having to even get an attorney involved.
Yeah. Now, folks, Bill is actually the president of an organization called Space Coast Florida State, the Space Coast chapter, if I'm saying that right, of the Florida State Guardianship Association. And we were both getting, I guess, some of the latest and up-to-date at the recent Florida State Guardianship conference. And one of the things that I didn't follow, Bill, until they were talking about this at the conference, and I'm sure you're thoroughly familiar with it, was they were making the argument, too, that, we think about this in terms of seniors, but let's suppose that maybe you're a grandparent raising a child or something like that. And one of the points that they were making is once you turn 18, you don't necessarily have any opportunity to speak into whatever might happen medically for your child. Let's say they're 19, 20, 21, 22, but maybe they're still, somehow under your care as a practical matter, but that doesn't mean the doctors have to talk to you, right?
That is correct, especially with the HIPAA laws now. You may not be able to find out the information. So it's important not only to have these documents in place as you're older, it's also young people should have these in place.
Yeah, and I know that's the argument you and I have talked about on previous radio shows. We've talked about the number of people who actually die without a will in the state of Florida, and those statistics are pretty amazing to me. But I guess if we're not taking the time to do even basic documents like that, maybe we haven't taken the time to do important documents for our health care either.
That's very true, and despite this state having the Terry Schiavo case, which is all over
right.
the news, I think it's something like less than 20% of people have these documents.
Wow. And yet, I know we've also had this conversation about why is it that we're reticent to go ahead and do this and get these documents together. I mean, I don't know if we think it's too expensive or maybe we're afraid we don't know the right answers on this, but I was thinking about this, Bill, in what you do in your law office and how you help families plan and do those kind of things the correct way on the front side as opposed to on the crisis side. You have a lot of expertise to help folks figure out how to get this done and done correctly.
Well, exactly. That's the point, is to try and have a plan in place instead of trying to deal with it on a crisis, because when you're dealing with these things in a crisis mode, the cost of doing everything goes exceedingly far up.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've talked about this, that this is not a great area to try to do this stuff yourself, because we've talked about this on many occasions. In fact, I think it's actually going to become our theme for 2023, because the thing that we're learning through this get your ducks in a row process as we step through these different areas that we want us all to kind of take stock of where we're at, and do we have the right ideas in place that are going to help us manage our aging plan. But the other thing that I keep learning the more I go through this is not you don't try this alone, especially when there's so much expert care and expert help out there. I was having this conversation very recently that we were talking about, for us, when we go through these kind of serious hospitalizations for a relative, maybe it's mom or dad or aunt or uncle or somebody or maybe a spouse, maybe it's just somebody we're very, very close to, a loved one. And for us, we're dealing with that maybe once, maybe twice, maybe a handful of times in our life. But, Bill, this is your life every day. You're helping families work their way through these challenges like literally every single week.
And that's true. And it's best to go to somebody who has expertise in doing these kinds of documents, just so you get it right the first go round.
Yeah, we've talked about that. What really seems scary about this, because you and I've had many conversations about people who like to, go find something on the internet. They'll Google something and say, oh, I'll just print this form out. And there's so many hazards that can show up, if it's not the right state, if it's not the right, if it's not an updated form and all these kind of things. The problem with that kind of trying to do it yourself is penny wise and pound foolish, because it seems to me like the very moment that you got to absolutely 100% have this document not fail, and there you are, and you find out you forgot one of the things that you're supposed to do on it, and now the document is basically worthless.
Yeah, I've had quite a few people come in the office, and they have these documents filled out, but they never got them signed and witnessed.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't do you any good. I mean, you have to have them executed in the front of two witnesses.
Yeah. So it makes all of this stuff pretty important to get a handle on. And so, again, Bill, we're talking with Bill Johnson, elder law attorney of the office of William A. Johnson. Bill has been a friend of the Helping Seniors Network. He goes back before there was Helping Seniors. He was helping Joe Steckler when Joe was building the Joe's Clubs for Brevard Alzheimer's, and has been with Helping Seniors every step of the way. And so he really becomes our go-to guy whenever we're asking questions and trying to get insight, first of all, not only on things that are pretty static, like the documents you need, but even when it comes to legislative updates and things like that. And, Bill, I guess that's one of the points that I also follow pretty closely, is that we have so many people who are moving to Florida. I heard a statistic, I don't know if it's the right one, and and there's an old saw that says 80% of statistics are made up on the spot, but this one I actually did read, and it was that 1,000 people a day are moving to Florida, not necessarily right here in Brevard County, but a lot of them are. You just see new construction everywhere, and people just moving. They're coming from the north, basically the north, south, and north, south, east, and west. They just say this is a great place to be. But what if we come into town and we have documents that maybe were prepared in another state? Maybe we have advance directives from another state. How does that work here in Florida? Is that okay, or do we still need to have somebody take a look at them and be sure they're going to do what we need them to do when we get here?
You should have somebody take a look at them to make sure they're going to work the way that you think they're going to work. However, Florida does have a statute. If the documents were valid in the state where you were when they were executed and you moved to Florida, they will be valid in Florida.
Right. So that means that presumably if they were properly done in another state, then they could help us here. But I know you and I have had many conversations about certain documents that operate differently. I think in particular, I remember you and I having we've done TV shows on it, we've done radio shows on it about power of attorney, how Florida is so very particular about making sure that the rights of the person who's giving the power of attorney are protected. Does some of that apply into this area, or is this a little bit more liberal?
Well, it's a little more liberal because the law does not want, somebody to be left without a decision maker.
Right.
So when we're talking about health care, it's a little more serious than, dealing with the finances and the interpretation issues. So that's why I think we have that statute that, recognizes out-of-state healthcare surrogates and living wills if they were done properly in the state you moved here from.
So I think we're kind of answering these questions as we go along, but I want to say, like, if our theme this month is Let's Talk Medical, these are the real, if I follow correctly, and correct me if I'm saying this wrong, but there really are these two, when we talk about Advance Directive, there are these two key documents that you're really talking to us about, right? It's the living will and the healthcare surrogate. Am I saying that right?
You are.
Good. See, I'm learning as we go, Bill.
And they typically make up what we call Advance Directives.
Okay, good. Well, we're just a few moments away from taking our mid-show break. We're talking with Bill Johnson, elder law attorney, board-certified elder law attorney with the law office of William A. Johnson. Bill, real quickly, before we get to mid-show break, what's the best number if somebody's hearing this conversation going, I need to get this pulled together, I need some more information, I might need some help? How would they reach your office?
They can call us at 321-253-1667.
Okay, good. Well, stand by because we're going to come back and have more conversation. Let's talk medical, Advanced Directives with the expert in-house, Bill Johnson. See you on the other side of the mid-show break. Stick with us.
It's 12:33 in the afternoon right here on 90.3 FM. It's Wednesday, Helping Seniors of Brevard time. As we continue with our program for today, let's reintroduce to you the host of Helping Seniors of Brevard and the executive director. Here's Kerry Fink. Kerry?
Thanks, John. It's another beautiful day along the Space Coast and a great day to be having Helping Seniors Radio. We always get together around lunchtime right here on 90.3 FM WEJF. Welcome back to those listening online as well at wejf.net. And to those who are continuing along with us in our podcast, which you can find on everything from Apple iTunes to Spotify to iHeartRadio to Amazon Podcast, wherever you get podcasts, look for Helping Seniors Radio. So we're having a good discussion because our theme on today's broadcast is following along, first of all, our master theme for the year. What we're trying to do is get folks, Joe Steckler, our president and founder, has always talked about getting together an aging plan, which is basically what we created for our theme for this year called Getting Your Ducks in a Row. In other words, let's take a look at those items and elements that we want to get together so that we are prepared for the things that we might encounter as we go along through senior years. And so with that in mind, our theme has been Get Your Ducks in a Row, or building your own aging plan. And what we've done is taken a look at different topics each month. So this month, in the month of August, we decided to say, let's talk medical. So if you picked up your copy of Senior Scene magazine, you know there's a great article in there from our operations director called You Are the Captain of Your Own Healthcare Team. And that, I think, is a perfect kind of backdrop for what our guest today, board-certified elder law attorney Bill Johnson, a longtime friend of the Helping Seniors Network, has just been with us every step of the way since Joe founded this organization. And actually, Bill helped Joe going back when he was building the Joe's Clubs and all that with Brevard Alzheimer's. But what we're talking about today is making you the captain of your own healthcare team. And Bill, as I reread that title, which is kind of the feature article in our newsletter this month that Nancy put together, I was thinking, well, that's exactly what we're talking about when we talk about advanced directives. What the whole point is to make sure you're driving your bus about how you want stuff done healthcare-wise. Am I saying that right?
That is correct, because if you don't drive your bus, somebody else is going to drive it for you.
Yeah. And I guess one of the questions is, for most of us, maybe we're a little skittish about dealing with some of these tougher questions anyway, maybe it's not necessarily so much that we're afraid of how to answer this, but maybe we're afraid of making the wrong choices or wrong decisions on this form. So maybe then we just don't bother with the form at all, which is kind of like the proverbial ostrich sticking their head in the sand. Bill, when people come into your office say, okay, I'm ready, I need to get stuff organized, and you sit down with them and you start to talk to them, as we were talking about in the first half of the show, if I follow correctly, two basic documents that go into this whole advanced directive side of things. One is the healthcare surrogate, which is where you say, this is who I want to be able to speak for me about medical decisions in the hospital if I'm not able to do so. And then the living will portion, which says if I'm really kind of, these are my words, I don't know if these are the correct words, but if I'm kind of vegetative or I'm not able to call any shots and it's not looking good for the home team, this is how I want these things to be carried out at that point. Is that kind of a okay way to say it?
That is. The healthcare surrogate, you're nominating somebody to make your healthcare decisions, and you can do it to have them effective immediately or upon when a doctor notes in your medical file that you're unable to give informed consent. And then that person is governed by something called substituted judgment, meaning that if they know what your wishes are, they have to follow them. So if you have some specific religious belief, like dealing with blood transfusions or things like that, they would have to follow your way of doing things. If there is no guidance as to how you would do something, then they have to act in your best interest. So in some of these documents, we add a bunch of things because certain people want them to, these healthcare surrogates to act in a certain manner. Now, on the living will, you're basically telling the doctor or the hospital that you do not want life support continued if you're incapacitated and in either a terminal condition, an end-stage condition, or a persistent vegetative state. So that's you instructing the hospital. And, sometimes there is a conflict between who you've made as the healthcare surrogate and them following the wishes laid out in your living will. And there was a case in Orlando a few years ago where that actually went to court, and the court ruled that you have to follow the living will.
Wow. So let me back up a notch because I think I followed part of the discussion. You said you could we're back on the advanced directives question. You said you could make that effective like immediately. Like, let's just suppose, a mother says, no, I want my adult son to make these decisions for me because, I trust his judgment. I could certainly imagine it in the case where there's a guardian, because the guardian would need to have that ability even if the person that they're overseeing, is still generally healthy. I could see where that would make sense. Is there ever a time where somebody checks that box and then the person starts fussing with the person that they checked the box to look after them? They come to a different conclusion when they're in the hospital. Does that ever happen?
Yeah, you're free to change your mind.
So if you
if you nominate somebody and you don't like the way they're carrying out their duties, you certainly, as long as you have capacity, can do another document and change it.
Okay, so that's good to know. And then the other thing, when you were talking about this living will question, and this prompted like a thought, I guess maybe a question, is like, we've heard so often about, like you said, this famous case that we all became very familiar with, the Terry Schiavo case, and I've been around hearing you tell some really complicated, I would call them war stories of just the things that you've seen along the way that have either, you become aware of because of your involvement in all these areas. But when we talk about this living will and a family comes in and says, okay, I want to do my documents, the living will one seems perhaps a bit scary because how do we know we're making the right answers on this? How do you help a family, kind of wind through the different, because I know there's all these questions about feeding tubes and things like that generally, but how do you help a family, get a sense of, I guess I would call it balance or peace about how they complete that document?
Well, in my living will, I actually have some different options. You could check off whether or not you want life support continued if you're incapacitated in an terminal condition, end-stage condition, or persistent vegetative state. Or I have another option. You can check a box and leave it all in the hands of your healthcare surrogate to make that decision.
Uh-huh.
And some people like having the boots on the ground, somebody who's there who can make that call when needed to. Other people don't want them to have to go through that and want to check off the other boxes.
Yeah. So we're talking with board-certified elder law attorney Bill Johnson, and our topic today is Advance Directives, which kind of fits under our this month theme of Let's Talk Medical. And the whole idea, Bill, as we're covering these questions, we want people to kind of think through where they are in their own medical plan. I mean, we're going to actually next month, we're going to be talking about Let's Talk Medicare in particular, because open enrollment at that point will be just around the corner. And of course, Bill, that's the time of year your mailbox gets flooded with all these, hey, we've got a great Medicare plan for you. And it becomes pretty bewildering to just try to sort through those things. And so next month, we're going to be looking at that question in particular. But this month, we're talking about those things that are designed to basically keep you healthy and well. And I guess we're remiss when we don't talk about the legal aspects. And one thing I want to bring up as we're talking about healthy and well, I think peace of mind is such an important aspect of this. And Bill, I would have to think that as you lead a family or a couple or an individual through the process of getting these kind of documents in place, they probably come in apprehensive, but then they leave sort of feeling like, good, I've put my ducks in a row. I can let this part of things rest. And I want you to talk a little bit about the importance of that, because I think having a little bit of mental peace about it is probably worth a lot too.
Yeah, and having a plan. Just having a plan is very important.
Yeah.
And I do have people who come in, and they tell me they've been up all night for the last 4 nights waiting to get in to get this stuff done so they can go to sleep.
Right.
Kind of crazy.
Well, and it's so important because, Nancy Deerdorf, again, she's our operations director. She's gracious enough to serve us in that capacity. She's like you, Bill. She was with the Helping Seniors organization, literally as Joe was founding it, and just like you, was back part of being board of directors and helping Joe back in the Brevard Alzheimer's kind of days as well. And she has this wonderful expression, which I think kind of sums it up beautifully. She says because she uses this when she's talking with people who call in on the Helping Seniors helpline. And she says, how can you know what you don't know? And I guess that's the point as we sit down with somebody who really does know the road ahead with those, with the decisions that might come up, like yourself, because you've helped so many families get through that. I guess that's part of half your job is you're helping us know what we don't know so that we can plan to not get hit in that pothole.
Very true, and we probably would be remiss if we didn't mention that there is another document out there called the Do Not Resuscitate Order.
Oh, yes. Good point.
That is a document you actually get from your physician. The doctor and you both have to sign it. It's on yellow paper. And if you have one of those and you code, they will not bring you back to life, which is different than the living will. The living will, you are alive, but the machines are keeping you alive, like a ventilator, a pacemaker, feeding tube. The machines are basically prolonging the dying process. Whereas with the Do Not Resuscitate order, if you die, you do not want to be brought back to life. And usually people who get those only get those if they have some sort of terminal illness that they don't want, if they pass, they don't want anybody to attempt to bring them back because of the suffering involved.
Yeah, that was another thing that I was really following the conversations that they were having at the Florida State Guardianship Conference about that topic, this DNR topic in particular, because they were explaining how really at that stage somebody has a terminal condition and really is, maybe even in hospice, but without that order, then it's not necessarily clear how that situation is going to be handled, and so it actually sounded the way they were describing it that it would be almost counter good medicine, because you're really hurting the person probably more than helping them if that's the situation that they're in.
That's correct.
Yeah. So, Bill, go ahead.
I was going to say, when they do the paddles or doing compressions, a lot of times they're breaking ribs and severely, inflicting trauma on somebody.
Yeah. And so I really followed part of that conversation because I guess many of us don't really understand the differences between that living will and DNR, which you're just explaining. And so that's a different discussion than having these advance directives, because you said that comes from your medical doctor.
Right.
Wow. So let's try to put a bow on this, because I want to reserve a couple of minutes. We're going to talk about our fundraiser, the Helping Seniors Car Raffle, before we get to the end of the show. And actually, I also want to talk about the Helping Seniors Foundation Cruise, which is another fundraiser and another fun kind of social activity that I guess step by step we're becoming known for as we go along here. But Bill, before we leave this topic of advance directives, I want to make sure that as we've been talking about this, hopefully this has piqued your interest, listener, to say, like, I really should go ahead and get some documents in place, because I don't want to just kind of leave it up to, que sera, if I find myself in that difficult situation. So, Bill, what is I know you have a lot of great resources right there on your website, which is floridaelderlaw.net, and I know you also publish a book. I call it a book, but it's a like a little guide that you've got a lot of good information. I think that's available on your website. Talk a little bit about that and how people would reach you if they want to get more information or have some questions we didn't get to on the radio, or maybe want to get your help in putting some of this together.
Well, they can reach us at 321-253-1667, and we have the book. We'll mail them a book if they want it. You can go on the website, floridaelderlaw.net, and you can actually download the book if you want to do it that way. And, there's a lot of great information. There's even, the book has a section about all the documents we just talked about.
Oh, that's good. So, again, Bill Johnson, board-certified elder law attorney, and the website is floridaelderlaw.net. Am I saying that right?
You are.
And the phone number one more time.
321-253-1667.
Okay. So with that, we're going to kind of shift gears. He said, automotively speaking, and we're going to talk about the Helping Seniors Car Raffle. And Bill, we've talked about this. This is now the 6th annual Helping Seniors Car Raffle, and it is the fundraiser that really keeps things going. This is literally about half of our budget for the year, and so we need your help to get involved in this one. Everybody can get involved in this one, and it's a great opportunity. It's great fun. It's a great cause, and it's pretty cheap. You get one ticket for $25 or 5 tickets in the raffle for a $100 donation. And this is what you get. You get, number one, you're helping keep the work of helping seniors move forward, now in our 12th year of serving Brevard County with that senior information helpline. Number two, you could pick which new car you want to drive home in when you win on Saturday, October 29th, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the American Muscle Car Museum. And the third thing that you get is a chance to be at the museum. You don't have to be present to win, but if you are in town, why would you want to miss it? Your ticket includes admission that night, Saturday, October 29th, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., to Mark Pylock's astounding muscle car collection. He's got now, we were just out there filming some promos and things that you're going to be seeing on Facebook. He's got 398 cars in his collection. And Bill, get this, because you've been you were there with us last year, weren't you? I seem to remember. So in that front room, I was asking Andrew Mackey, who is the events coordinator there. They were kind enough to let us come in and do some filming. And I said, I remember last year you told me this front room just by itself was worth $7 or $8 million worth of cars. I said, how much is that worth? Have the cars gone up? And Andrew looked at me and he said, not only have they gone up, but he said, you see this car sitting in the center? He said, I don't know exactly how to tell you what this car is worth, but he said, I do know that Mark traded up 5 cars and $5 million to get this particular unique prototype car that's sitting in the center. So he goes, I don't know if that makes the front room worth now 10 or 12 million, but my point is every time you go in there, Mark has more cars. Tell them about the museum, Bill. You've been there, you know.
Yeah, it's amazing. The amount of cars there, all shapes, styles, makes, and models, as they say, and you know, everything from sedans to sports cars. But just an amazing collection.
Yeah, and we're really blessed. He's opened up, I think Joe Steckler, our president, and Ed Fleece, who's our treasurer in the organization. They were talking with Mark before he actually built the museum, and Mark generously said, "No, I'd like for you guys I'd like to help you guys, and you're welcome to use the museum and have your grand drawing here." And so literally he's been open now 5 of the 6 years we've done the car raffle, and every year, we don't take it for granted, but he has been so generous to invite us back. He throws a great party. He's got beer, wine, soda, sandwiches, snacks, and of course his amazing collection. It's not open to the public, so the only way you can get there is through an event like the Helping Seniors Car Raffle. And remember, so not only are you going to be there that night, but you might go home in a car. And Bill, if you remember, there's 4 choices. They all come from A.J. Hire's family of dealerships. You can choose a 2020 Dodge Challenger, a 2020 Chevrolet Camaro, 2022. I'm saying the wrong years. They're all 2022 models. The Kia Sportage or the Mazda Miata convertible. And Bill, as I remember when I've asked you before, you said you kind of think the Mazda Miata is kind of a spiffy car.
They're all good, Kerry. They're all good.
Yeah. So what we're doing, we're having a thing called Automotive August, and that's what we're going to do each Saturday. We did this last year, and we thought it's a fun moment to get out, tour the dealership, check out the car that you might win on October 29th, and have some great barbecue. So this year, Chef Jillian with Chefs for Seniors is preparing a gourmet lunch for us on Saturday, and each Saturday in the month of August. She's going to do she calls them Hawaiian pork barbecue sliders. And so lunch is free as long as supplies last. So this weekend, we're going to be out at the Boniface Hires Mazda store, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. That's right there really at the corner of US 1 and NASA Drive. And we're going to be there. We'll have fun. We'll have some door prizes. We'll have great lunch and, of course, the great cars. And, of course, we will have your Helping Seniors Car Raffle tickets so you can come out and join us and get your car raffle tickets there. How do you get your tickets? You can call 321-473-7770. You can get them online, helpingseniors.carraffle.com. You can also actually get them by any Boniface Hires dealership. And Bill, I think you've got tickets at your office as well.
We do. We do.
So that's another reason to give Bill's office a call and say, hey, I want some help on Advance Directives. And by the way, I'd like to get my Helping Seniors raffle car tickets too. It's a great fundraiser. It keeps us going. We're also going to talk real quick about the Helping Seniors Foundation Cruise, which is selling very fast. January 6th, January 8th, MSC Meraviglia from Port Canaveral. So you're going to want to be there for that. More information on that at Helping Seniors Travel Club. And we'll talk about that more on our next Helping Seniors radio broadcast. So Bill Johnson, elder law attorney with the Law Office of William A. Johnson. Thank you for joining us and sharing with us your expertise today on Advance Directives. And thank you, listener, for joining us on this week's edition of Helping Seniors Radio. We'll see you right back here next week, 90.3 WEJF FM.